Boom. We're live. How are you doing, gentlemen? Let's start with the gentleman in the United States. Hovhannes, good morning. How's the weather in San Francisco?
Good morning. It's a bit cloudy and foggy, but it's typical San Francisco weather, so I cannot complain.
And without us, you're in Lithuania, right?
Yeah, we recently experienced the record volume of snow. The analysts of meteorology, they say that it's like the biggest volume of snow in terms of centimeters over past 15 years. So for the past 15 years, we didn't have a winter of this kind. So a lot of roads were blocked. I think something close to several thousands of people were without electricity for several days. The traffic and logistics were in an absolute catastrophe. So right now it's getting better. The technicians did their work, but for the next weekend, we already will experience the almost records freeze, so minus temperatures. So that's already another challenge for us in terms of logistics. So interesting weather, real Nordic winter.
Sounds exciting without us. What about you, Cristobal? You're in Denmark now?
Yeah, and Denmark actually was funny because Vitas was sharing about Vilnius, and Riga is the same. It's been 40 centimeters, I think, drop in the snow on the weekend, and I just got a picture with more snow coming up. So yeah, I think it's the real winter we haven't had in a decade. But yeah, I mean, Copenhagen is very cold with a wind, also rare, but 2 days in a row, blue skies. So crispy and so fantastic. And tomorrow flying back to Riga. So yeah, all good. You can already feel the days are getting a bit longer. So I think that's actually bringing a bit more of the energy in these very empty cities. So all good.
Fantastic. You did manage to make a lot of kilometers during the pandemic, so I'm very proud of you.
Yeah, so, I'm still doing it. Only 55 flights last year. So this is what I say. So I'm trying to catch up between PCR tests and flights, and I think I'm getting there very, very close soon. So.
Fantastic. All right, those of you who are tuning in right now, my name is Stoyan. I'm a productivity and performance coach and a co-author of the book Perform: The Unsexy Truth About Startup Success. And this is the fourth Perform panel. I'm here with my co-author, Cristobal Alonso, the CEO of Startup Wise Guys. And we have two exciting guests this week. And without the further ado, I'm just going to give them a chance to introduce themselves shortly. Without us, could you introduce yourself? What do you guys do with Zity City?
Yes, so Zity City is one of the fastest growing startups in the field of logistics currently in Europe. What we do, we help businesses, small and medium, to get the goods delivered to their customers faster, the same day, and even in less than an hour, depending on what price the customer is willing to pay. We are currently in 3 countries, opening 2 more in this year. And I myself, I'm one of the co-founders from the day zero, and I'm responsible for the operations part. Operations, the way how I like to say, is the sales and marketing sell the magic, and operations has to make the magic happen.
Right, and it's a perfect topic you're joining us on. Today we'll talk about focus and execution. Hovhannes, would you also introduce yourself so we can get a bit of context for the audience?
Okay. Yeah, my name is Hovhannes Avoyan. I'm a founder and CEO of a company called PicsArt. And before PicsArt, I founded and successfully exited 4 other startups. So you can call me serial entrepreneur if you want. So I really enjoy making startups and and making the startup successful. PicsArt is my largest company I ever built. We are now approaching 700 people in 6 countries, and the company is growing fast. We are number 1 in our category, which is a creative platform. People which create different visual assets. Particularly on mobile, we have over 150 million monthly active users. So this is the largest by far platform which exists, and some of our competitors, even combined, they have less monthly active users than we have. The company is, I'm located in San Francisco, where we have headquarters, but we have a pretty global and distributed team, and we have multiple locations, and we are big in almost every country. We have our users are from all countries in the world. And every day we are seeing, people coming even from very small and tiny places, and that's our global nature as a platform, which allows people to create and express their identity or goals through the visual assets.
Thanks. Thank you, Hovhannes. Cristobal, I sometimes forget to give you a chance to introduce yourself to those who doesn't know you. So maybe shortly, could you also give us an overview of who are you?
I will just make you write more chapters in the next book. Don't worry. I will keep count on that one. Yeah, so my name is Cristobal Alonso. Two roles here, if you want to say it. One is that, yes, as Stoyan mentioned, co-author of the Perform book together. Also the CEO of Startup Wise Guys. I think sharing with Vitas and with Hovhannes that having a global footprint, many different countries, many people remotely, obviously in different business fields, but experiencing, I think we will talk a lot about it, the scale up and the growth, and how do we manage to keep focus and to keep executing when you have that level of growth. And I have the pleasure and the honor to have invested in Vitas and their team when they were unsexy and only have 1,000 euros MRR, and they were only in one city. And now it's to me amazing to see where they are less than 2 years later, right? So, but basically, we are the largest early stage investor in Europe in terms of number of deals, with a portfolio of more than 250 companies. I'm very proud to both scale ourselves, see our portfolio scaling, and keep impacting the ecosystems in Europe. Today also, very close to, I love Armenia. We have invested in a couple of Armenian startups. We have not been very successful in the last 2 years attracting the talent for theirs. It's one of our to-dos, because the talent is in little Armenia, but the talent is amazing, and the character and the drive of the people also. I think culturally we're very close by, so I hope that we can invest in more Armenian talent in the near future.
And by the way, those of you who are tuning in right now, you have a chance to ask a question. So if you post a question in the comments, we'll try to take as many questions. And of course, we'll give away a couple of copies of the book, of digital copies of the book. So make sure to post your question to this gentleman. A lot of experience, a lot of insights we can learn firsthand. So do not hesitate. And I'm going to start with you, Hovhannes. You mentioned you've built 4 startups before PicsArt. PicsArt is quite a global company. And today we talk about focus and execution, right? What did you learn during the years of, and maybe if you can think about early stage startups, right? What should they focus on? Do you feel like you learned some things, and if you start over again, you'll be more focused on some specific areas?
Absolutely. There was lots of learnings I have in my, with all these four other startups, and even the early days of PicsArt. I'm now advising to several companies, startups, and I really wish I was my own advisors 10 years back or 15 years back. And I would help my younger me to be much smarter and achieve such success much faster than I did in my real life. So there are lots of things. There are lots of things I learned. Being persistent, focus, and lots of things. There are lots of stereotypes and lots of insights and wisdom shared around startups and how to do the stuff. But when you really have its own, learn to your mistakes and learn to your experience, it's much more valuable, because then you really can, you can feel on your skin all these things. So absolutely, lots of learnings, lots of happy to share a couple of them with you. But in general, I mean, let's say when you have your 10,000 hours of doing the startup entrepreneurial work, you also build a kind of like a feeling, intuition, which is hard to explain. But you sometimes have a feeling that this will work, this will not work, and it's very hard to explain. And for that reason, it's really I really recommend that new entrepreneurs to really try things, try and learn, build your own instincts, build your own gods of how things will work, because it's a half science, it's half art, and the art part requires more experience.
All right, try and learn. I think it's a very good advice especially for more engineering, technical founders who always try to make things perfect. But it also has to be a balance, and I know that what you mean is actually also this. You still want to be focused on the most important areas of the business, right? So what were for you, Vytautas? And you guys had some really, really great growth last year with Zero City. As far as I understood, reading an article, it's a 8-fold growth you had last year, which means a lot of execution, a lot of focus. What did you guys learn in terms of focusing, and what were the areas that you really had to focus on, also being advised by the great program of Startup Wise guys?
What a question, but obviously there are learnings to be experienced every day. But from summer up until end of December, it was really a game-changing year for ZT City. We have attracted the funding, the investment, which Startup Wise Guy was part of, and at the same time we scaled really, really a lot. We grew 8 times in that year. And in terms of focus, is what I personally learned is there will always be more on your plate that you can eat. There will always be more than you think, and you have to become really, really selective about what you do, and you start to say no a lot. Even when the news came about the funding, and the names of the founders were online in several high-profile internet articles and blogs. LinkedIn. You get bombarded with messages, invitation to events, to some speaking conference, to some networking, to someone wants to sell you something. Myself and other co-founders had to be really ruthless with that. We just had to block and ignore some people so that we can focus on what's important is the customers. At the end, you work for the customers, but obsessively focus on the customers is the key. And the other thing what I can share is what I also really learned, and would like myself to understand early in life, is that as an entrepreneur, your job is to replace yourself, and your company will grow when you will be replacing yourself. If you are doing package delivery yourself, replace yourself. If you are doing some invoice accounting things, replace yourself. If you are doing legal things for the company, replace yourself with people who are better at that skill and more competent than you are. And so we had the fortune to replace ourselves in quite a number of fields. The team grew bigger. The team can now take control of a lot of functions. But now it's the other challenge that I'm still learning to do right, is to manage the people. Team grew quite a lot in those several months. with the COVID-19 and the remote work, it's an extra challenge to see them off and to like ask how they're doing, to delegate the tasks, to monitor how the tasks are being executed. It's you can't just walk up to him and ask how are you doing. You need to book a meeting, make a phone call. So that's another level of challenge and another things to learn, and we are still learning on that.
Yeah, Cristobal, do you also agree with the?
Yeah, it was actually funny enough. I was going to touch on 2 points that Vitas just mentioned. And to me, is the power of no. I think the biggest power of execution is to be able to say no to how many people, how many activities you say no, right? And I think it comes both on your tempting yourself, what you need to do versus what you want to do. And sometimes, we like to do some things, but the company needs something else to be done. And I think that's you call it the monkey bothering you, right? Stoyan in your allegories. So I think that is a special power. And I think I give it to Hovhannes that the older you get or the more experience, call it wiser. I think is the instinct helps you the most, but you still need to control that inner self that wants to do the fun part sometimes and know what you need to do, right? The second part, I think what Vitas mentioned to me is fundamental. And in their case, I think they have experienced it very quickly, which is very soon you're not managing your focus, you're managing your team focus or your team capacity to execute. And to me, it's how fast you need to work on helping them to prioritize. I think your key role as a CEO, as a co-founder, is to help your team to learn how to prioritize and constantly be repeating about priorities, right? So no matter how many times you say, we're not going to do this, before you know, somebody's trying to do it again, right? And you say, no, guys, we have said that the focus this week is to open in billions. So that's the only thing we do, right? No, but let's assess Riga because we have this partner who offered it. I said, we are going to focus only in billions. How many times we have to say it, right? And this happens constantly, right? And I think in experience of first-time founders, think that on Monday you said on the sprint in the morning, and everybody knows what they have to do, right? And to me, it's amazing that you have to repeat it almost every hour to somebody different in the organization. No, this is the focus, right? So I think to me, the key learning is how fast we understand that we're here not to manage soon enough, because I think, again, instinctively, we learn much faster, and the more experience, the better. Not to manage our focus, but to manage our team focus and how to train our managers so they can teach their teams. And as Vitas says, this might have been easier where people could even see how you do it. But now people only see you on a window once in a while. They don't see your noteboard. They don't see you on the blackboard. They don't see you in the brainstorming. So it's even more difficult. How can you explain that? And how do you learn new tricks to keep explaining this? Maybe from videos, maybe podcasts, maybe writing more emails, maybe more clear. Just to give you an example, this morning I was in a call with my head of branding, and we started talking, and I was sensing her frustration, right? And at some point I said, sorry, my fault. I don't think I have briefed you properly to have this discussion, and I can sense your frustration, right? So I brutally almost told the call, and I just wrote a long email saying, hey, this is where we're coming from. And then I can call you at your time in your agenda because I invaded your space just to tell you about something that I have not debriefed you, right? So I think you have to be very much also respectful about their managers have their own focus. Because you're the CEO, you cannot invade it, right? So how do we create that sense across the entire organization so everybody becomes actually very, very, very focused, right? We can touch afterwards that I think there is too much efficiency these days, and our biggest challenge is people is dying, mentally burning, and we cannot sense it many times, right? So the battle of efficiency versus basic well-being in the current virtual world, I think is also a new challenge that we are facing, right?
Yeah, and I think it's something we need to definitely touch upon later in the conversation. And all of you mentioned something which I think is really important. And also you, Cristobal, you said efficiency. We've very much focused on efficiency, but actually effectiveness, which is how do we actually pick what should be the priorities? And all of you here in the room are successful CEOs, founders, who have been going through this over and over again for years. So I'm just really curious if you can practically share, how do you guys, what is the process, right? How often do you sit down and think about the priorities? How many priorities do you pick? Like, do you have any specific process that really helped you during the years to to stay on track on the most important priorities and to keep your team on track of it as well?
I mentioned one idea. Hovhannes is nodding, so I think he can contribute also with this one. I actually find two. One is I feel accountable, right? So either you have a board or you have your management team, but you know that every X amount of time, every week, every month, I'm also going to report how we're doing, right? So which forces me constantly to look at my budget, my strategy, what I have said that we're going to be achieving, right? So it's not just about doing things, which is, it's to touch about being efficient, but it's about what have we said are the priorities in Q1. So to me, it's this balance. So accountability is one. So no matter your CEO, make sure I'm the CEO, I only had the board once. So make yourself more accountable. Either you have to report every Friday to the board, but by making yourself accountable, I think you're constantly thinking, am I doing the right thing, right? Or are we doing as a company the right thing? The second part that I think is very valuable is this ability to constantly reflect about the strategy and constantly keeping the long term. So it's very easy to become short-term efficient, but sometimes you're going to sacrifice the long term. And also when you have investors, pressure, next quarter results. So to me is make sure that you keep the balance of long-term and short-term every time you're making something, meaningful enough. A prioritization between two important projects, between hiring this resource or this resource. What do you want to go? Are you impacting the long-term? And if you make 3 short-term calls quickly, I think the fourth one needs to be long-term, right? So keep that balance. And to me, again, I go back to experience. I think it's easier to think about the strategy the more you have been on the game, right? Versus efficiency, let's do. But I think, seeing Vitas, seeing the team there, Lycos, I think they actually have this strategy thinking, able to just not look at today, but look at what do we want to be in 18 months and where do everybody else is going. Keeping your eyes open to also see why are they making these calls? Why say, the competitor is stupid? No, nobody is stupid. Everybody they're making decisions for a reason. You might not agree. So keep your eyes open about, Lycos shared today some very good insights about what all the competitors were doing. And the competitors were doing two completely different things. I said, why are they doing this? And what is the reasoning behind it? And then how is this affecting us? Which goes back to strategy thinking. So keep the long term and keep the strategy and make yourself accountable.
Yeah, Hovhannes, I saw you were nodding and maybe you wanted to add something on top of this.
I would say, we also using a similar framework of thinking like long-term and short-term. That's a good way of thinking, but we also have another way of thinking is like we kind of like, separating our, like, let's say, product features and other activities between two parts. One we call context and one we call core. And the core and context are, the way we define core is something which is very unique to us, which really, create a unique value proposition to our customers. And core, it could be the reason people coming to us in the first place. It's something which is very unique, which is kind of innovative. It's different than the current market provides. And that's where we can charge premium. That's where we can really advertise and build a strong competitive advantage. And there are context part, which are things which already done, or it's very common. It's used by all the competitors. You must have this part, the context part, because it's kind of like it's already kind of like an important part of the whole package. But there you don't have any competitive advantage. You just need to satisfy the kind of like expectations of the customer, because everybody is doing that. In that sense, you don't need to perfect the context. You probably the context part, you need to provide good enough solutions just to satisfy the the basic needs, but you don't need to really over invest in terms of providing too much of the innovation and overseeding your competition on that sense, because market is not going to pay you premium for the context part. They are going to pay the premium for the core part, which is unique and which is differentiating your product versus the competition. So when we split that part, I mean, both are important. Don't get me wrong. We don't say you should exclude context. But you have a different kind of thinking. You put more innovation in a core. You keep putting the more entrepreneurial leadership in a core product, core features or core solutions. In a context, you put a more execution talent. People which can execute, they can make it efficient, run it smoothly. No downtimes, etc. So that way, we really understand which people we niche where, and also we shouldn't overinvest in our context part. The context part, sometimes is good is good enough is good, versus we should be excellent on our core part. That's how we can kind of make our decisions in terms of where to invest, where to put people, etc.
I love you said sometimes good enough is good enough. I think, again, going back to early stage founders coming with a technical background, they always want things to be perfect before they launch it. And one of the things that really impressed me by the interview that you gave us for the book was how much emphasis you had on this experimentation mindset that you're trying to incorporate in the DNA of the culture of the company. So people have this, it's okay to try things out. It's okay to experiment. It's okay to try to be creative, because if you have a fear that when you experiment and try something new and then your boss is going to come after you, then you probably would not explore your whole creativity, right? So I think it's a very important point. And one of the go ahead, Hovhannes.
Yes, I would love to add to that, because that's a super important part of our culture. So imagine myself, let's say I'm an experienced PM, product manager. I'm maybe, just maybe 1 or 2 years old, with the experience in doing products, etc. So I have a hypothesis, I want to test it. And, I was thinking, okay, just to simplify a bit. So I was thinking the green button will work better for my users than the red button, or this will work better than that one. And actually, I tested the green button and I failed. So I tested and I failed. So as a PM, as an experienced PM, I feel embarrassed. I feel okay, my hypothesis was wrong. I shouldn't go and tell everybody about my failure. But that's very bad for the organization, because as an organization, we are not learning from my failure. So consider me being replaced with another product manager, and the product manager will come and do the same experiment again, because he doesn't have this memory of what was done, what was tested, and what was failed. So basically, as an organization, we are going to test all things again and again, because we are not learning. We are going to repeat the same mistakes over and over. If I'm a more experienced product manager, I know this is a very good thing. I didn't fail. I did an experiment and I learned. So that I see it from the positive side. So now we know that the green button is not working, and I should make it as a knowledge. I see this is not a failure anymore. It's a success, because now we learn. And failure is failure if you're not learning. Failure is a success when you learn and you can improve and you act around the failure. I think that's one of the key elements of successful organization and entrepreneur. To create a culture when people are not afraid of failure, and they are learning from the failing, and they're spreading the knowledge to whole organization about what not to do next time.
Did you take you a lot to build this culture? Does it take a lot for a founder to get there, so people actually believe that that's the boss is not going to go after them, and the managers and so on?
Right. So because I built so many startups, and my core team was working with me for a long. They know how I see this. It's harder for new employees. When we bring new employees, it requires certain period for people to start adjusting to this new culture, and it's usually they're coming from the cultures which experimenting is either prohibited, or we can get penalized if you do something wrong, and your boss will come and say, okay, why you did these things wrong? Why you should we should really do much more thinking, and should do research, and come up with a better hypothesis, and not test anything because you are failing. The 80% failure, so it's not tolerable. So that's kind of cultures we are seeing people coming to our organization, and we need to undo this. We should really provide them a new perspective. That's not wrong. That's not bad. It's a part of evolving. You cannot evolve by doing only the things which are written in the textbooks and everybody knows and because otherwise you'll not learn. You just repeat other people's writings or theories, but you are not going to innovate. So that's a very fundamental insights we have from doing this startup things for so many years.
Yeah, just wanted to add, I completely agree. I don't think it's difficult. I think most startups that are successful and are scaling fast is because they're not afraid of making mistakes. The difference is they learn very quickly from them and they move on, right? So to me, I always say, you make 10 decisions, 7 are right, 3 are wrong, you learn quickly, you do it again. Much better than making 3 perfect decisions. And I think that's the big difference usually between corporates and kind of successful startups, because there are many who are not good at it. I think the biggest issue is that when we are growing, is your people embracing. So very fast, they start having their own little kingdoms of managers, on silos, right? Which is very natural happening. So how do you make sure that basically you can still make mistakes? And to me, key thing there is to keep showing to them how vulnerable you are as a CEO, how many mistakes you also make, which means keep telling the people there is no ego here. I make a mistake, right? And to me, I always said, the key thing is every time there is a big mistake in the company, it's my fault. But that was the junior in Lithuania. Well, that's the guy that's a report to somebody who reports to somebody who reports to me. But then it's my fault, right? So to me, so make it clear, whatever you're doing is my fault. So don't worry. You can blame me. What I don't allow is you not to learn from that mistake. So to me, it's also the keep question. Don't tell people why this happened. Ask them, what have you learned? And what are we going to do different the next time? But that is much more difficult than it sounds, right? And people, because everyone wants to be in control, right? The moment you create organizations, who reports to me? I was having a discussion, but who reports to me? Does the person report to me or no? I said, no, it reports to 3 different people. We're still a startup. We don't get the luxury of, well, we need something, we hire something. I want to still serve resources. I want to still, but to me, is this idea about how fast do we learn from mistakes and making sure that the CEO is seen as the most vulnerable one and making mistakes, which means that every second call you go out publicly and say, yeah, I did something wrong. This is what I learned, right? And it is, again, most egos think now I'm the coolest guy at this USA, wow. No, you keep making mistakes and teaching the organization that it's okay.
At ZT City, we have every Friday with our operations team a 45-minute video call just for that purpose, where everyone is bringing up a difficult story or a difficult situation that happened over the week, and tells. We call it like a story Friday. Like it's you can bring a good story or a bad story, but the concept is very similar to what Hovhannes did. It's like you had a situation, you made a certain decision how to solve it, and we can consider it as being a test. And when you tell everyone what the outcome was it good or was it bad? So if that becomes then knowledge, it becomes not only what you as a operations manager in Tallinn know, but also that then this knowledge is being shared to the people in other markets as well. We have even a day for that and a time.
Yeah, and I see the topic is being quite interesting also to the audience. Eva is tuning in and she has a comment. So she's saying, I love this fail, learn, succeed culture approach that Hovhannes mentions. How to empower organizations to implement it? Could it be that it depends on people who make this fundamental decision to have such culture? What keeps leaders of organizations away from implementing such an approach?
Yeah, so I can tell you a couple of stories there, and then let Johannes and Vytautas also add their part. I think first, in large organizations, it's very simple because risk is not rewarded, right? So what is rewarded is to make the budget. Let's put it this way, right? So all the bonus is about making the budget, spending the budget, being on target, right? Well, that doesn't allow risk, because risk is you can be 10% up or down, right? So to me, it's how do you create incentive mechanisms? So in large corporates, the problem is the incentive mechanisms are not there to reward risk taking, right? In smaller companies, I think, again, it's about continuously showing with examples that failing is okay, that we can do it, right? And that we are learning from it, and at any level of organizations. And I think Vitas and Hovhannes said it's the sharing, is the creating the forums to share it, is to make sure that the knowledge is spreading in the organization, right? Because if not, it gets actually puzzle. But to me, it's leading with example. Because again, most organizational leaders, the moment that things start going well, they start becoming prima donnas and these super CEOs and whatever, and they stop saying that we fuck it up more times than we get it right. And that's okay, because you just need to get it right. There is very few times that is life or death. And those are the few times. I was talking to Guillermo, a friend of mine who became a CEO in Investory, right? He told me, there is just only these 2 or 3 decisions that you cannot get wrong. And as a CEO, you need to, go around, get all the data, and you know that shits are at stake here, right? But it's 2 or 3 decisions a year max. The rest, execution matters much more. Fast, test, MVP, stop getting a big project, a big thing. MVP it, get results. Does it make sense? Yes, collect data, move forward. So the thing is this, which is keep the startup spirit inside your organization as you grow. And this is one of the things that people lose. People start, I want to save my place. What the fuck? We're a 40 people company. We need to be 400. We need to keep taking risks. We need to keep experimenting. We need to keep learning. And the CEO has to keep showing with example that he's the one making the most mistakes of everybody. And it's okay. In most occasions, it's been very important decisions, right? In life or death.
Yeah. If I can add, I agree. I mean, this is a important part, but also it's also hard to implement in many companies because it's going against human nature. We all want to be proud of our job and feel embarrassed to share our failure. And everybody wants to report success. Every company, every employees, they want to report success. So what we do also, we start, doing it more and more. We start celebrating failure. So when a person is reporting a failure, even like as a CEO and some of our managers, and reporting the test results and indicating a failure, we say, oh, that's a great good. You get this failure. We finally now know that this hypothesis doesn't work anymore. Now we know this. We have this information, so we need to celebrate a failure as well. So that's a very important part of our culture to make sure we are not really saying anything bad about the failure, but actually we are celebrating failure because that's it used to be a couple of times when I push some of my ideas to be tested and it fails, and I say thank you because now I know that I was wrong on certain assumptions. And it was good because now I will not push anymore this thinking. I will think this way. And now we learn we can do something better for the next time. So it's very important to understand. It's an even reaction of the CEO or manager to the report, saying, "Oh, that's a very good job. We should really spread this knowledge to the whole organization. And thank you for doing this very important job." So,
yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks for contributing.
By the way, just to add with what Hovhannes said, again, decisions need data points. Failure is a data point. The more data points we have, the better decisions we make. So if we don't fail, we get in very, very skewed data points because they're in one place, right? And this is interesting because if you look at what is one of the industries that hides the failures the most, it is venture capital, right? You go to the portfolios, they never put the companies that close. They never put all the companies that they failed. They only put the best and bright. And I was thinking, why? There is so many times that, the team did the best. We just basically, there was no product market fit. And actually, it's even given in VC, especially in Series A more, that 19 out of 20 won't return you the money. It's the 20 that gives you the money, right? So why are you hiding? But so to me, it's always fantastic how little you learn from mistakes in VC, or how everything is closed doors about why they do it, right? And to me, it's the opposite. What have we learned? So, at this point, is actually, I find it very fascinating being more or less part of that industry, how bad we are about in that sense. And our sense, that's always which mistakes we made, which decisions we made wrong, which founders in our case, always, which founders we got it wrong. And why did we get it wrong with those founders? Because that's what we always bet on founders, right? I always talk to Alexa, which founders have we got it wrong? Why lead us there? What was the skew thought? What did you thought? Which data we miss? How can we do it better the next time, right? Because it's all about, can we read founders better going forward?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Kind of reminds me actually about a company, Cristobal, if you remember from Armenia, right? We had this little story. You mentioned Alexa, so I couldn't not come up with it. Like, I go for the second week of the batch of Wise Guys, and I think it was one of the few companies that you didn't get into the boot camp, which you have a 3-day boot camp with Wise Guys, get to know the people, ask them about their purpose, what they want to do. So I get into, it was, I think, the second week, but the guys just came from the airport. They had their luggage with them. And I do my workshop on purpose. What is the why behind what you do? People are excited, everybody leaves. And then I have a one-on-one with the teams, mentoring the startups. These guys come to me.
They were for Armenia. Sorry, They were for Armenia. That was our third Armenian team. And they turned around and left Armenia back because it inspired them so much. They said, man, you're so right. What we're trying to do makes no sense. We need to do something much bigger. Alexa, we're leaving the batch. We need to start it again from scratch. And I'm like, damn. But it was actually an Armenian team. But
it was basically, like they just they came. But like after this, and Alexa was very mad at me this day because they just flew in, right? But then after this time, I think you guys like really took the, like the learning from this. And I think this is part of the whole process. Like, okay, they didn't come to the boot camp. Maybe everybody needs to go through the boot camp, right? But you don't know. You might have to make a bigger mistake if it wasn't for this situation, right?
Yeah, actually, by the way, it was Vitas. But Vitas wasn't there. It was his batch, actually. His batch 12. It was in batch 12 also.
Oh, yeah.
So I think it was Limonas and Carol is there, but it was actually their batch also. Yeah, that was a very accidental batch. The Italian team, the Armenian, but hey, good things happen of everything.
And look, they came to me, they hugged me, they were like, "Thank you so much, you changed my life." We found our why. It's not connected to.
Now we put you on week 1, so they had to leave the leave faster. So this is when they offer. No, but remember, Sapos used to offer people after the 30 days money. So, do you want to leave? I give you, $3,000. It wasn't like peanuts. So that if you're going to leave as soon as possible because I'm going to keep investing on you, right? So we better know. And again, you're looking for data points to know the people, which is the most difficult thing. Is how can you get to know people? Because usually you know them when you put them in the most difficult decisions and situations. And that's usually not happening in the honeymoon of the beginning, right? So that was the point. Say, hey, I give you $3,000 if you leave tomorrow, right? So that's getting to know them by putting them to make an important decision, right? So, and again, this is where it's a killer with Zoom and with not having physical. We used to be in the selection boot camps, and the first night we go out for drinks, right? And the whole thing you want is, I want beer discussions, right? I want informal. I want to really get to know people because when we're doing coaching sessions, they get very serious, right? And now in Zoom, it's so transactional. It's so difficult to get to these type of discussions because everything is a transaction in Zoom, right? Is what are you here for? What's the agenda? We got it. Good. Bye. Right? There is not even chitty chatty at the beginning or at the end, right? So this is actually a very interesting thing. How do we learn our people in a completely efficient world and ecosystem, a moment that we find ourselves right now? We're missing data points.
So it's a really good question, and I actually want to speak a little bit about the wellness part and all those things. But before that, just the last question before we get into this topic. We mentioned a few times, but I really want you guys to maybe share some examples and stories about it. It's really speed of execution, speed of getting feedback. And if you have any stories, one of the stories we mentioned in the book is actually a story from this company called Lean Plum, where they had this hypothesis, they have an MVP, and I think what they did is they talked to 300 people from their target group during a conference. They had like a list of all the people. So for 2 days, they spoke to 300 people, to co-founders, and they validate and they figure out these guys are not the ones that we target. So we need to pivot. And I the more people who's sort of like built something meaningful, they had similar kind of approach, like really fast, get the data. So I just wanted to hear from you if you have any recommendations or maybe stories that you want to share for the early stage founders out there that are always trying to be perfect before they show their product out there to the world.
I think I can share a few about how we are launching new markets and new cities, and this might be insightful because like the conventional probable wisdom is like if you want to go into the next market, you need an office there and you need to hire someone to manage the office, and you need to like a big team and an accountant in that team and a lawyer in that, and basically you need $1 million to open a new market. And instead we have this approach that we can open the new city completely remotely, and like one of those cities is like our second city in France, Lyon. We launched it without a single person ever in Lyon. We could recruit couriers completely by like online tools and online presentation and Zoom calls. We had like they need to wear some of like our equipment, so we shipped it by post. And at Vesel we did a lot of sales just by phone and email in completely remote ways, and within like several weeks the city is up and running. And in a similar ways we have learned to same with Paris. It's like at first we hired just one French colleague who did initial homework for 3 months here in Vilnius. Then our team, this our French colleague and all the co-founders flew to Paris. We rent an apartment in Airbnb for 5 weeks. We lived together as a group of university students in one apartment, and basically we're working seven days a week until something happens. And within 3 weeks we had our first customer and first deliveries and first MRR. So it's in a similar way we now do with Poland. We have one guy in Poland who is doing the research, doing the sales, analyzing the market, and I think within already in several weeks we will have first revenue. So there is also always a way to start to launch a country as an MVP. You have the product is good, but all your operations can be complete MVP. You have basically nothing to lose as long as you don't have customers. It's okay if maybe your contracts are not too perfect or your invoices maybe are not too compliant or whatever, but you have nothing to lose at that level yet.
That sounds very. I remember you guys going to Paris when that happened. There is a book that we read or used to read in MBA. It's called The Goal, right? It's by this Israeli. It's a 1989 book, right? And it tells you that it's not the speed of the guy on the top; it's the speed of the slowest guy in the company, right? So to me, it's not about how fast we run. I can run very fast. I can run faster than everybody else in my company, right? But they cannot follow me, right? So the question is, how do I run at the speed that my team can follow? How can I run at the speed in which my team can keep learning? And how can I go at the speed that can be replaced? So you go too fast, you're fantastic, but you can never be replaced, as Vita says. And then we are not going to scale at some point, right? So to me, it's not about how fast you run, it's how fast you make your team run. And how fast is the slowest person in the process running? Because that's the one that is marking at the end of the day, the speed, right? And I think it's something, this is a fundamental reflection talking about execution. It's not about how fast we go, We are very fast. We have a lot of intuition. We can make a lot of discussions, but our people doesn't. So how do we help them go fast? How do we help them feel a bit more comfortable in that speed? Because we are great at getting people out of the comfort zone. But at some point, we need to find this balance of, again, making mistakes is okay. Okay, that's a way to actually ensure that they're more comfortable being faster, because they know even if I fuck it up, it's okay, right? So how do you make these smaller steps in which people feels more comfortable as they get more speed? Because in the scale up, you never stop. When we do 4x, we need 16x. And then we need 64x. And then we need three more cities. And then Beta says, you're not in the next city. Your team is in the next city without you. So can they actually launch the next city without you? Can you let it go also yourself, right? So to me, that's a very important reflection on that question that you were asking.
So yeah, on country penetrations and going out, expanding geographies. It's always, of course, depends on a product and services you provide. Depends if you're like a physical goods, you need to infrastructure in the country, all these things. We are in a kind of luxury because we don't have that kind of issues. We've been in a global from day one because of the nature of app stores and web, and we been localizing our product, very early to supporting 30 languages, etc. We do. We're launching products. I mean, we're launching new products and we are testing products, and our philosophy is go early and test the market and collect feedback and iterate until we get a better fit. So for us, it's so we don't have we haven't have any particular marketing efforts in these particular countries. Almost everywhere we've been growing organically up until now. We start doing some marketing in some countries, more targeted, but it's a rather exception than the rule. For us, we're launching new things. It's more like on a product side and features. When that's where when we start a new product, let's say it's a web. I think we started the web 1 year ago. It's a new product for us. So we're allowed to do the same kind of editing and image enhancement and design works on the web, similar to mobile. We decided to isolate the group from the rest of the company and create a kind of a startup situation when people are not really driven by processes, by bureaucracy of the larger organization, by needs of the more detailed specifications, for example, or more defined processes. So create a little bit more like a chaos for this team because they are very, very early. They need to be more agile, more interactive, and more incremental. So it's important to incubate these teams and isolate from the bureaucracy of the organization, so these people can behave fast and don't need to, follow the rules maybe which you use for the other teams, which already kind of like in a more robust, in a much more mission critical scenarios when they have real users that they have a much more restriction. They should follow a more strict QA process before launching, etc. So that when you do new products and they have a very limited usage and there are new users, not mission critical, etc., you need to behave slightly differently than with a mission critical product which already built to the scale, and it's a kind of like you cannot really like compromise user experience because you're already making lots of money, and it's important product for you. So so our approach was like separate this and create a new group and create a kind of like a startup within startup environment when people are really like behave like they're like 10 or 15 people company and behave like that.
But did you raise a very important point, and I think also Vitas touched it through the city MVPs. It's just unbelievable how quickly companies of 20 people become bureaucratic and slow, right? So how, even with 40 people, everybody has processes and everybody needs planning and everything is, and how quickly say, no, you know what? Let's break it in units of 10. Let's break it into a new city organization. It's just unbelievable. And to me, I would say, guys, I don't mind having processes, but what I don't want to make sure is that we don't lose that. If we make a decision, we can execute tomorrow. We might not have capacity, but in anything that is important, we can never lose the capacity to execute tomorrow, right? But Hovhannes say that suddenly you're like, shit, if we let this project incubate in the process, it will take 4 months before we can even launch it, right? So we need to separate unit. 10 guys outside of here. Just report to me and make decisions, right? We said in Vitas, hey, team to Lyon, go and launch it. Don't come until you launch it, right? Don't get distracted by every process and everything. It's just unbelievable. People think you need 5,000 people. In 30 people organizations, people want processes and planning and it's slow, right? So we quickly need to recognize that as leaders and keep allowing these small mini organizations within the organization to keep moving fast, right?
Excellent points, guys. As I'm looking at the time, and it's my ownership to be the timekeeper, I would like to maybe wrap up this discussion. Cristobal, you wanted to make a remark before. If you just want to really briefly, before we give the chance to our guests also to kind of say a few words, but just a few words about how do we stay focused? How do we keep our team focused and actually understand their capacity to execute when we're working from home? Everybody's, locked and you don't see people by the coffee machine. You can't really sense them, how they are. Like, what has been working for you, and how do we make sure, we put the wellness and the mental health in the equation?
Your team will be efficient. You don't need to worry about them being efficient. You need to be worried about them being alive. So don't check on them. They're doing their job. They love their job. Don't worry. Your job is to put more and more time trying to make these small calls. How are you doing? You don't realize still how important those, how are you doing, WhatsApp, mini call, mini voice note. We are now emphasizing more the flowers for the presents being delivered, making sure that even if you're in Istanbul, we get something. So to me, the presence is like, I dedicate an extra full day just to manage my people, but to manage the people side of them, not to manage the operational part. So don't worry about efficiency. In our companies, with people like us, the companies are efficient. The resource, they're more efficient than ever. There is less distraction than ever, apart if you have kids at home with the school. Our job right now is to put focus and execution on their well-being. And if we manage that, we will go through the growth is there. So I think it's just extra time, which usually we will not put it because things are going, you can't have the coffee. So those extra calls, make sure that every day you have called 2 or 3 people in your company. You put 30 minutes for each person once a month at least. So you have like, hey, how are things? Oh, we have half an hour. Don't worry. There is no time. Keep talking. I'm very happy listening to how things are in life. So put that time for those informal interactions that we're missing. That's your job now, more than anything else.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Yes, Cristobal, yes, touch important topic here. Like more often than not, companies are in this, KPIs. More often than not, companies are in this mode of like tracking KPIs, making sure the goals are met. Very short and tight deadlines. Limited resources. A lot of pressure on execution and skipping that human part where you just make a check if everything is fine and if the mental well-being of your team members is good. That can create additional risks. And I myself, I have to admit, I'm guilty of doing that. Not often, a lot. I have weekly reviews of KPIs. I have daily stand-ups where everyone is updating on the tasks for what they do yesterday and will do today. You have everything in my sheets, what each team member is up to, and but this is something what I should myself do often. One more takeaway for the listeners, since the topic is focus and execution, is I'm great fan of the idea what is called upstream thinking. Like, are you familiar with the concept? And so the situation goes like this. Imagine like you and your friend are relaxing at the river, and you see a kid drowning in the water. So you jump into the cold water, save the kid, and then like in 1 minute you see another kid in the water. You jump again and save him, and then you see like 5 or 6 more kids in the water. And now you're like all over the place, and you're just trying to save all of them. And you see that your friend is running away, and you ask him, "Where do you go? We have children to save." And he's saying, "I'm going upstream, and I will take down that guy who is throwing kids into the water." So it's analogy that your like as a leader role is in a lot of cases is anticipate the challenges and anticipate the problems before they happen. Once, like if someone has to do like a heroic feat, like to do 300 phone calls in 3 days, that means there is a failure in the system, but something was incorrectly in the way how your system works. And so like I'm myself like trying to do it as often as possible and encourage team to like have this like upstream thinking and prevent issues and prevent difficulties and catastrophes before they happen.
Hovhannes, you wanted also to contribute.
Yes, very quick. Yes, the burning is a very real issue these days. It's you have many, your calendar is getting quickly filled with the meetings and calls, and most of them probably if you've been in the office, maybe you just have a very quick conversation, but because it's all remote, you start a couple of calls and put both your calendar, and you suddenly see your calendar like fully booked end to end. You basically have nothing to do but just calling and talking and having all these meetings. And so we really start working against that kind of approach by using several tactics. First of all, my recommendation was to block the calendar for your private time, and to not do any or work on the documents and do offline work, not to be the real-time communication for the period of time. I personally block my calendar for like 4 hours a day, so I can really work on the documents and do something. We start doing more memo style kind of meetings when you share the whole discussion spot as a document, and we basically very quickly discuss the issues and no need to inform people about all the facts, etc. Everybody can read and practically skip, and some of the meetings could be even replaced with this one memo. And and then another thing is like start doing more and more like more mentorship calls and informal calls. So not talking about projects or the execution things, but talking about like motivation, the emotional parts and the need of training, concerns, things like that. So we start doing that more and more, and I personally put on my calendar like at least sort of frequency meeting with all my directors and managers, and having better group talks or one-to-ones, but mostly talking about not particular projects, but almost everything, the lifestyle and the training need, the market situation, the future of the company, also all these things.
Yeah, and I think it's a very good note that sometimes just talking about something that's unrelated to work or different projects takes people from the focus on what they are and kind of releases this stress, this pressure, but also the fact that your leader or somebody is calling you just to ask you how you feel. Not because, hey, how's the deadline, but just this care, like being caring for the people, and people appreciate it, just receiving a call for no reason. So thank you guys for sharing this learning. I think it's it's been really, really important also to touch upon this. I don't know if you guys have a couple of minutes just to tell us where could people find you. Just let me know if you don't, but very quickly, without us, a few words. Where could people find you? Thank you for being with us today, for sharing your learning. And City, obviously.
Yes, so people can find me on LinkedIn. Just type Vytautas Norika and the profile will come up. And of course, I invite everyone to check our website, ztcity.com. And if you are like in the Baltic countries or Paris or Lyon or soon to be Poland, try out our delivery.
And Hovhannes, yourself, where could people find you, find PicsArt, and maybe a few words about what's your focus today with it?
Yes, you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find PicsArt on iOS, Android, or website. It's PicsArt.com. My LinkedIn is pretty active, and also, I'm going to, activate more of my Twitter account. Please, you can start following me on Twitter. So I'll start doing more regular posts on my Twitter account.
Cristobal, final remarks. Startup Wise Guys is launching a new batch. You're muted. You are still muted. Again.
Yeah. So I didn't hit that in 2021 yet. So thank you, Stoyan, for being the first one saying, usually, can you mute yourself? So, we're always open. We have 2 batches coming up in the spring. So any startup founders looking to accelerate, to be invested, to have a long-term relationship with an investor, we're mostly online right now. And as soon as possible, we go back on site. But, this will be the 6th batch that we run online with amazing results also. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm not in Instagram as Stoyan, although I cannot share his stories, so I look like I'm in Instagram, but no, it's just him. And he wanted to try TikTok the other day, like, dude, don't sign me in for this one. So basically, but I'm very active in LinkedIn, and funny enough, as Hovhannes, and actually also I have, somebody want to, give you more time.
Focus on execution.
Focus on execution. So LinkedIn and as him, I'm trying to activate also Twitter lately. So it seems like it's a trend between us to start sharing those things. So, and go to soon enough, we're going to change the Perform book to a new website and also sharing digital. So we will share more in the coming days.
Yes, this is the current webpage at the moment, the performbook.com. And I'm really, really grateful for this gentleman for, first of all, contributing to the book, sharing their insights really from the heart, taking their time, but really sharing their learnings from their experience, together with 50 plus other founders and thought leaders. We try to incorporate a lot of learnings in the book, a lot of no bullshit information coming from the founders from the region, which we call New Europe, founders who've been working hard, who's been committed, and who took the long road to build something meaningful. So really, really grateful for having you guys in the book and being with you here today. Yes, if you're interested to learn more about it, you can go check out the book on the webpage, and obviously go and check out PicsArt. Download it on your app store, and City, if it's in your city, also an amazing service to check out. And also check out the Startup Wise Guys batches if you're a startup early stage. So that's it for tonight, guys. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Stoyan. Thank you, Hovhannes. Thanks for us. See you soon.
Thanks for having me.